And it is a hot mess because the Americans are absolutely unwilling to back Britain and France. They don't want to anger our other Arab allies over oil. It is, at one point, believe it or not, the OPEC hadn't been established yet, but the Arabs get together and impose an oil embargo against Britain and France, which the United States of America supports. I mean, the long and the short of it, the results of the Suez Crisis are that Israel is perfectly happy to go back to its border, but what they get out of it is access for Israeli shipping through the Straits of Tariz and access to the Arabian Sea. And they also get UN observers along the Israeli-Egyptian border, which is a guarantor of peace, which actually works for another 10 years. It's the end. It's like the end of British and French claim to global power. I mean, they are humiliated. They've got to pack up their bags. They're going home. It is like one of the, it's the end of the Great Britain and France as a global power. France is so upset that they eventually pull out of NATO. The UK is bitterly disappointed. As a result of that, they refuse to send troops in a United Nations effort to support America's efforts to support, in turn, the Diem regime in Vietnam. I mean, this thing plays out at a variety of levels. Eisenhower himself actually regretted not supporting Britain and France. In retrospect, he said that, weakening UK and France in the context of the larger Cold War was not an intelligent thing to do. And he will also come to regret strengthening Gamal Nasser within the larger pan-Arab movement. Well, Nasser overplays his hand. And long story short, if he hadn't died when he did, he probably wouldn't have as claim to the prestige in the Arab world that he does, particularly after the 1967 war with Israel, when, again, Nasser's popularity within Egypt and within the larger Arab world is jeopardized because of the Israeli defeat of military forces. I'm going to try to wrap this up a little bit here. Anwar Sadat, on the death of Nasser, Anwar Sadat, who, if you recall, was complicit in the military overthrow of the revolution of 1952, Anwar Sadat will rule Egypt from 1971 until his assassination in 1981. He starts out of the gate by exploiting Cold War rivalries to the extent that he's willing to sign a friendship treaty with the USSR in return for weapons, but no sooner are the weapons delivered and set up and the Egyptian military is taught how to operate these complex ground-to-air missile systems than Sadat says, thank you very much, you can now leave. Of course, Kissinger and Nixon at this time are just rubbing their hands with glee, and they're all seeing this as a great victory. And as I say, the larger context, having rearmed Egypt, Sadat, very quickly goes to war again with Israel. There is some initial success by the Egyptian military, particularly its air forces against Israel, but they make a series of tactical blunders, and Israel prevails in that particular war. Sadat, interestingly enough, and I'm not really sure how he does this, he's able to sort of in this kind of jujitsu maneuver, he's able to translate a defeat of the Egyptian military into broader, more fundamental popularity at home. And he reinforces that by allowing for greater political freedom. That means allowing for the establishment of opposition political parties. And he pursues a variety of economic policies that create broader opportunity and some measure, I would say, if not prosperity, then some measure of greater economic security for a relatively impoverished population. I mean, gosh, we haven't even talked about the size. One of the aspects about what makes Egypt so important, the sheer number of Egyptians. It's the most populous Arab country. I think, behind Jakarta, behind Indonesia, it's the second most populous Muslim country in the world. It's so large geographically. I mean, I'm tempted to say, you know, to visualize this thing, Egypt is the size of Texas and Oklahoma put together, most of which is like complete desert. And I'll never forget, I mean, one of the ways that I came to understand how large and barren and huge and unexplored Egypt was, I remember in the 1970s this really cool headlines where, like, deep, far south in the Egyptian desert, this World War II bomber was discovered that no one had known about and had apparently, like, been incapacitated by anti-aircraft fire, flew on in spite of the fact that the captain and the pilot and the co-pilot were dead. It crash landed in the desert because it ran out of gas and just like made this perfect landing in the desert. It wasn't discovered until like 30 years later. But when they did discover it, they found that all the Browning 50 caliber machine guns and ammunition had been stripped. So I guess someone had gotten there first.